Well, the next topic as well was talking about Conte, and obviously there's a perennial question: was he backed? Was he not? But I want to read a couple of excerpts from the article, and I want to know if there's an inherent conflict in what was said in this article. It was talking about, the first paragraph is talking about the summer and the business we'd done, and it says Tottenham ultimately signed 6 senior players, and obviously with the benefit of hindsight, how many of them did improve Conte's first team? Perisic was the only obvious upgrade in the first 11, but he turned out to be a disappointment. If Conte wanted to show that Spurs had a higher ceiling than just 4th place, then he did not quite have the players to do it. And then the second paragraph, which is near the end of the article, it says it should not be forgotten that Spurs finished 6th and 7th the 2 seasons before Conte showed up, and would likely have done the same if they had stuck with Nuno. If Spurs are to finish 4th this season, then a lot of it will be down to the foundations that Conte has given Tottenham, and the solid foundation to finish 4th. But then the last line is, but with Conte, Spurs pay him £15 million per year, and do they pay a manager of that kind of elite level just to keep finishing 4th? So one paragraph they're saying, if Tottenham wanted to show that their ceiling isn't just 4th, Conte didn't have the players to do it. And then the next paragraph they're saying, but if you're going to pay a manager £15 million a year, are you doing that just to finish 4th? So isn't there an inherent, in that sense, is he kind of set up to fail in a way? Because you're not giving him the players to show there's a higher ceiling than 4th, but then you're saying, well, if we're paying you £15 million a year, we're not doing that just to finish 4th. So is that kind of doomed to fail in a way? I'll go to you, Ash, first on that.
I think it's more than Conte. And I know it's the stereotypical answer, but it comes down to culture. Your culture, the reason why Conte was able to go to your Inter Milans and your Chelseas and your Juventus, their cultures compared to Tottenham Hotspurs, especially over the last 30 years, I'd say, our culture hasn't been of that going past the top 4. We've been quite a lot of the time in the 90s, we were mid-table team at best. In the noughties, we moved up a bit. And then obviously in the last 5 or 8 years, we've been a top four side. And so when you have an elite coach coming in, trying to change things, it's going to take time. He's not going to be able to come in and change the fortunes of a club and get the club past that top 4 sticking point. As the people above him are making decisions as well as himself. He has some power, but ultimately, when he's talking about solid foundations, we assume that he's talking about the back line. And so when your first signing is a striker, when we're heavily stocked in the attacking lineup, no wonder we didn't push on from that top 4 position. The decision making, whoever it was, whether it's Paratici, whether it's his team of scouts, because even if you look past Paratici, there's a number of job titles that are in this club that, what are they doing? What are they recruiting? What's their actual job? They are affecting our decisions. Whose decision was it to bring in another attacker as opposed to prioritizing a centre-back or a right wing-back, something that we were crying out for? The ethos for a long time was, the DNA supposedly was a top 4 club, or Champions League club, should I say, that produced young players, young academy players that pushed into 11. That's my idea, what I thought Tottenham was. And I think as a neutral, loads of neutral fans, they were looking at Tottenham like how we are looking at Brighton, an exciting team. That's why lots of people were getting behind Spurs, because we had that kind of DNA. That was our thing. And when you move away with your first 2 signings being Perisic and Fraser, Forster, they're not of the DNA. However, there is a compromise, because you want to adhere to the powers that be in Conte. Conte wants ready now players. But why did we get a Conte in if that's his ethos? Am I making sense? The two DNAs are conflicting.
100%.
One wants ready now, one wants players for the future. And so that's
And that's
why
on Daniel
we
Levy.
went, huh?
That is on Daniel Levy. Like he screwed up there with that decision.
Sorry, big up to everyone in the comments here. Big up to everyone watching. Can you just clip that? Can you screen record?
Post it every day.
Dan receipt.
That is a receipt king right there, yeah? Oh, sorry, that way. The receipt king. I don't know, Trey. But yeah, basically, that is poor management from the top.
Yeah.
So if you knew your priority, you knew you scraped top four. We just got top four. We got it by what, 1 point, 2 points? How many points it was? It wasn't a massive margin. And you knew to get over the line, your priority was to fix the back line, whether it be back five or back three. And your first decision is to buy an attacking forward. Then I'm sorry, that's on you. And that culture, it doesn't matter who comes in, that culture will still be there. The ethos will still be there, and the decision making will still be there. There's players that there's people around Paratici we've signed. Like we got a guy from Everton, and he's a part of the recruitment. But what is his job title? We've got other players. We've got other directors of football that are around Paratici. They've got positions. What are they doing? Who's running the club? Who's in charge? You know what I'm saying? There's so many areas that we're not all looking at as fans that have resulted in the downfall of Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. And it's very frustrating to see that even if, I don't know, a Nagelsmann came in and he was the right fit, because before Conte, that was the guy that Daniel Levy wanted. He wanted an upcoming manager, a young manager that will be able to work with the youth, develop them, play them, and push on from there and, you know, get that Champions League football, make us competitive. But when that option is not available and you're taking 72 days to make an appointment or find them a suitable appointment, and you come up with a Nuno and you talk about you want to stay with the DNA about attacking football, you know, front-footed football, and you do the opposite, then that is a complete flaw of the hierarchy at the top. Now, there's no point in me saying all of this and saying, because I'm not moaning, I'm just literally stating for what I can see. So I'm not saying like, oh, my days, you know, need to tear my hair out and sack this off and blah, blah, blah. I'm just saying what I'm seeing. And I think that's the result of Conte getting frustrated, because it filters down. The players getting frustrated, it filters down. And that is the reason why I don't think Conte has been tactically flexible, because he's not happy with his squad and he doesn't think the players that he can bring in during the game is enough quality for our team to keep up that level. And that's the reason why we've been losing a lot of games, because when we've needed to make that change, Conte's refused to do it. And guess what? In that middle, you get, like fans say all the time, we get overrun. Why is he so stubborn? You're lacking energy, etc., etc. But in his mind, there's not enough quality that he feels that he can step onto the pitch. And I think that's why you're getting articles like this where he's losing the dressing room, he's losing. Yeah. Obviously, as a player, you need to be intrinsically motivated yourself. You don't need a coach always saying, yeah, come on, we can do this. Come on, yeah, come on, guys. Let's go to Barney's. Yay. Like, come on. You need to be, you're a footballer. That's your passion. That's your love. Like, I don't have to tell Brains. I don't have to tell Sean. I don't have to tell Sim. Like, come on, let's do a show. Let's, you know, sit down and talk about football. Everyone wants to do it. Like, everyone's motivated by ourselves, because we are grown people with our own minds, albeit they are young men. You know what I mean? They are young men. But at the same time, like, if we're not talking about new topics and we're talking about the same topics all the time, then we're going to get sick of it. You know what I mean? We're going to get sick of talking about the same talking points. Not everyday Levy, I'm hearing band shows say now, because they're getting sick of it. So it's the same with...
Say that again? What did you say then?
Not everyday Levy. We're getting bored of it. Yeah, no one. Yeah, let's go. And that's it. Go on. Next.
I'd say that's why Conte's got to go. Like, and that's why Nagelsmann or someone exciting's got to come in right now, because this isn't over. Like that you could get a really good manager with an exciting way of being and just a different way of being, and this we could go on a run easily. Spurs, we never went on a run this season, and we've been waiting for it, and this is an opportunity to bring Poch in. I'd love that. We'd go on a run. We'd finish top 4 easy, 100%, because it re-galvanized the players. Nagelsmann probably do the same. And Nagelsmann, you've got something that can really build to the future. But you need something to change now. You know, you need these players to be revitalized. You know, like we have to also remember that we support Spurs, right? We support the players. We have to remember that. We can't just bring big managers in with ego and who don't do their job, but also who were set up to not do their job. Conte was never going to get backed by Levy. We knew Conte wanted the type of players Conte was going to want to bring in. That's what we were excited about. Levy was never going to give that. So it was never going to work. So having Conte there is like being in a relationship with a super, super hot girl and you're punching. And every day you're thinking, every man's looking at her. You know, like, and you're paranoid and you can never get comfortable. That's why the article, like one of the lines, buddy. One very different from me, I'll tell you that. But you know what I'm saying. Like, there's a line in the article that said he never once turned down the opportunity to leverage uncertainty in the public. He never once said he was going to sign on. He never once let the players feel like, I'm here. Like, you're investing into my system. Like, so let's do it together. He never once did that. So he never got the players on side for me. And that is if that's what you do, dead. You gotta go. So that's why I thought he like as soon as I realized that he didn't want to come back, and he's now got this operation. He's come back early, and now he's away. It's all of that is like, nah. I don't buy any.
What's weird though, right?
He doesn't want to come back.
I'm usually like the most likely person on any panel to go after anywhere other than Daniel Levy, just because of the natural kind of balance of most panels that I'm on. But on this particular one, I actually, even though I think that I'm Conte out, I don't want him around there. I think he's a wrong guy, but I always did. On this particular one, I think that there are variables that you have to kind of give Conte the benefit of the doubt on, or you don't know what would have been. And I know that injuries are always a thing that every team faces, and it shouldn't be an excuse.
Of course, yeah.
And I know that when we saw that list of like how many combined days or matches of players did we lose, but that's a little bit deceptive because it doesn't show in that list how influential were the players that were out. And I think Conte has had to deal with this season an incredible amount of disruption to areas of the team all at the same time. Like for the first half of the season, there was a consistent theme of our forwards being out all at the same time. Obviously, we got away with Harry Kane not being out, but Richarlison was always injured. Decky was, tweaking his hamstring or whatever every single time. Even since he's come back, he hasn't really got over it. You can see he never drops into second gear. And, Sonny, obviously, with the face thing has not helped his confidence. And confidence is one of the reasons why his form's been so bad anyway. So, and then as soon as that whole kind of the forward line issue got resolved, then there was problems in midfield and there's problems at the defence. So, there is in spite of that, we're still fourth, which is a testament to him. But for me personally, just to get back to the Conte thing overall, again, I'm not for Conte, and I lay a lot of responsibility on Conte's feet for stubbornness and tactical rigidity, lack of curiosity in players that we've signed, lack of or over faith in players that he trusts that don't deserve it. But I blame Daniel Levy for this entire environment, it being a thing anyway. Excuse me, guys, I've got a tickle in my throat.
Sorry.
Jose Mourinho was the experiment. If you wanted to pivot to a defensive manager that came with a big brand name that could satiate the fan base and think that this is, that he's going to be the catalyst. If it is the manager that is responsible for getting the juice from the squeeze, he's the guy who's going to implement that winners mentality. Pochettino did brilliantly, but didn't have the chops when it comes to winning historically Jose does. We tried it, it didn't work. Right, then you had the whole debacle throughout the summer of bringing up Fonseca, then turning him down last minute, then going after Gattuso and the fan base saying no thank you, and then us pivoting away from him. Then the 60 days without a manager, then we bring Nuno in, lasted for 2 months. That whole thing was airing dirty laundry in public. It was an embarrassment. And then after that, to go after Conte, which to Ashmatic's point, completely agree with you, mate. Oil and water doesn't mix. You've got a club that has made it clear, not that they communicate effectively anyway, but when they do, they say we go after young players that we can develop, and we want that kind of that ethos. And the football philosophical thing doesn't even need to be expressed. That is Tottenham DNA. If there is one, that is what it is. And then you go and hire a third consecutive manager that is the antithesis of that, and he is. Maybe he's a more relevant, more recent version of Jose Mourinho. Maybe I'm not even sure if that's real anyway. But to me, Daniel Levy screwed up and takes the capital L for why we're in this situation. We've wasted 18 months under Conte, and look, like I say, people probably are shocked that I'm saying it, but I blame Daniel Levy for us in the situation we currently find ourselves in. That's not to say that Antonio Conte's football, his stubbornness or rigidity or any of those things get a pass. They don't. But from now on, Daniel Levy has to make the next decision, whoever it is. He has to get this bang on, and it's more complicated than just a manager. It has to be about the philosophy, has to be about the director of football as well, because the sword of Damocles is hanging over Paratici's neck and could be cut at any time. And if he can't do his job, then where do you go from there? So this particular moment for Daniel Levy is a put up or shut up. You've got to get this right, and if you don't, there's nobody, even people like myself, that are going to give you any more patience.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that. And I think if you're going to bring in managers like Mourinho and Conte, then you have to do it right. You have to make sure that you're giving them tools to really compete at the top. And you could say, well, if they're such elite managers, then they should be able to turn water into wine. But at the end of the day, every job they've been at, yes, you could argue whether they're overperformed or whatever, they've had the tools to really compete for a title. Sometimes they win it, sometimes they don't. A lot of the times they do end up winning it. But you can't just bring them in and expect them to turn Eric Dyer and Sanchez and Longley and all these players into title winners, and that's what they want. That's how they get motivated. They don't really care about finishing top four or all these little wins here and there, like the boardroom one. They get motivated and they really care about winning trophies and being the best. And they will ultimately get frustrated when that's not happening. And so when I hear the articles say Tottenham don't really have the squad to show that fourth is higher than their ceiling, well then I end up looking at it and thinking, well then he's obviously going to end up getting frustrated. That's obviously what's going to end up happening. He's going to lose that motivation because that's what keeps him alive, is be competing for those titles. And if you're going to bring him in and then not give him a squad capable of winning the title, then I always see that as like, is it kind of doomed to fail? And that's how I see it. It kind of was. He was always going to blow up at some point because he's not going to keep that. But then you could argue, well, is it on him to show his elite level management by getting these players above their station like Pochettino did? And maybe that is a case. Maybe you can say, well, it's on you to kind of get more out of these players than you're getting out of them. But at the end of the day, if getting more out, if their limit is always going to be not going to be a title challenge, then whatever that limit is, it's still not going to be what he wants. If you know what I mean, he can get more out of these players, but is that limit still not a title challenge? If it is, then what's the point?
Ceiling at Tottenham. Yeah.
Do you not think there would have been a conversation? I would be, any other business, any other industry, like the industries that I'm in with like music and film, there is such long negotiation of contracts and what my minimum commitment, what's your minimum commitment, then how do we go to the next part of the contract? There's so much length and debate over what we can give each other in contracts. In football, I cannot imagine for a second that Conte sits there and goes, let me see the squad. Okay, all right, yeah, sign me up.
But brains, you have to remember in July, before we appointed Nuno, we spoke to Conte, and Conte ended up walking away from the negotiations because he didn't feel like we were ambitious enough. What happened? What must that look? I don't know. I wasn't in the room, but I have to assume that after the Nuno disaster, Spurs panicked and just pretty much made empty promises to get him through the door. That's more. I think that's the most likely scenario that happened, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In terms of empty promises, in terms of like, look, you come here, get us top 4, and we'll give you everything you can to compete, and we'll give you everything you can to make us title challengers. And that didn't quite happen.
But then, if I'm Conte, I am insanely dumb and naive if I don't get that in contract. If I don't get that in writing, that I get these players. I'm
smart enough to get a contract installment saying, if you fire me, absent me slandering the club, if I speak out of turn, but you fire me for cause, then I get an extra year's pay. Like I think that Daniel Levy was a moron for allowing that clause to be put in the contract. And I agree with you, Brains, that if he didn't put in at least a guaranteed minimum spend. I don't know if you can always get the guaranteed on who you get, but you can surely get a guaranteed minimum spend. It happens in my walk of world, in investment banking back in the day, but you'd always have contracts that would say you'd be guaranteed a certain commission, right? Either it would be a percentage of what you earn or whatever else, right? You'd always get some sort of guarantees around performance.
But then this feeds into the idea that this sounds like so clear to any sensible human, but you would have the conversations, and your lawyers. I mean, lawyers are the ones really that it won't even be Levy talking to Conte. They'll have the first cuts, and then it'll be Conte talking to his lawyer, Levy talking to his lawyer, and then they put a contract together. But the fact that these points weren't fought through, and that we're in this situation where both sides are really don't have a tight contract. That for me, it makes it go, okay, well, Conte saw this as a short-term thing. 18 months, fine. No real overcommitment from me. 18 months, no real overcommitment from you. Fine. I'll have a little crack, and then we'll go our separate ways. And that's why he's never once shown his, I'm going to stay on. It's never, you know what I mean? So it's always been a short-term thing. Safety to get away from him, safety to get away there. And that's what it's been. It's never for them, for the people who are really in the know, like Levy, Conte, Spurs, the team. It's never really been, this is going to be our shot to win a title. This is going to be our shot to win a cup. Because we could have won a cup this season. No other season for the last fucking 10 seasons we're a better situation than we had this season. And you can clearly see that was not the incentive. The incentive was just eke into the top 4 again, then move on.
All right, and talking about moving on, we are looks like we are going to be moving on from Antonio Conte at the moment. Obviously, look, he's not returning from Italy as things stand. He's still out there. It seems as though he won't be returning, and Tottenham being widely reported looking at alternatives. So if Tottenham are looking at alternatives, then I think we should as well. So we've got some managers that we're going to be talking about in the next section, and who we think then the next appointment should be. And I don't think there's any better place to start than the manager who's just come available as of today. And Thomas Tuchel won't be the next Tottenham manager because he has gone to Bayern Munich. But that means Julian Nagelsmann has now been sacked as Bayern Munich manager, and he's become the bookies' favourite immediately to become the new Tottenham manager. He was widely reported to be in the running for the Spurs job when Spurs sacked Jose Mourinho. Or was it before Jose Mourinho? I think when Spurs sacked Pochettino, he was widely, and I think when Spurs sacked Jose Mourinho as well, both times he was widely reported to be in the running for the Spurs job. Now he's available. Is this someone who we want? Is this someone who fits the bill of what Tottenham are looking for now that he's become available? Or is he too inexperienced? He's still very young. He's still in his 30s. Is he the guy you want, Brains? Nagelsmann? Yeah,
of course. Yeah, he's lost 3 games all this season. How dare you lose 3 games? It's absolutely insane. He's got an incredible record in the Champions League. Tuchel is going to come in now and again jump into the bed, some other man's bed with his girlfriend, and make her climax. Like he did that. Lampard was doing all right with him in the Champions League. Jumped into bed with his wife, made her come, got the trophy. Now he's going to do the same with Nagelsmann. It's crazy. Honestly, I can't. Who knows what goes through these kind of directors' heads over at Bayern, like, and what they maybe. I look at them as like they're a very long-term club, and I think they can see that there was some big changes happening, and God knows why they could possibly see negatives in him, other than maybe behind the scenes and maybe that his ideologies and where the forecast of where he thinks he can take the team. I mean, maybe he wants to work with certain types of players, and it's already too late for them. Maybe they're bringing in or they're looking at a different road, but. To go from Nagelsmann to Tuchel, all right. I guess that's just like, well, this guy's good at jumping in late and winning a Champions League. Who knows, But for us, like, one person's negative is another person's positive. So for us, it would be amazing if it almost be, it'd almost be too good to be true. Don't you guys feel that? It's like
it's kind of perfect timing, isn't it? We're looking for a manager, and they've just decided. Apparently, as well, part of the reason it's all happening now is because Spurs are closely looking at Thomas Tuchel, and maybe that is kind of triggered Bayern Munich into action, because Bayern really like Thomas Tuchel and have always wanted him for a while, and they believe that maybe Nagelsmann isn't the man to take them to the treble that they're on board for at the moment, and maybe it's slipping away. And even though they've won 8 out of 8 Champions League games this season, they're only a point behind Dortmund in the league. Apparently they see maybe the change is the perfect time for them, for Tuchel to kind of take the baton off Nagelsmann. But I agree. I think Nagelsmann, he plays the football we want. He's a young, progressive manager, could be here for many, many years. I think it could be the perfect choice. Ash, Julian Nagelsmann, is he your number one choice now? Could this be perfect timing for Tottenham? And would you be willing to wait till the summer to get him in, or would it have to be now?
I feel like if we're going to get Nagelsmann, we have to kind of put some type of pre-contract in from early, because you've got Real Madrid sniffing around. They're looking to get rid of Ancelotti. They've been following him since 2018. So a similar track record to us. I know we're 2017 a year earlier, but when Real Madrid come knocking, most managers follow or players follow. And then you look at the Chelsea project with Potter. Potter obviously notoriously isn't doing too well. And the American owners kind of want like a young project manager, someone that's going to, develop their very youthful squads that they're going to have for a very long time. And he fits the bill so much. Is he the right man for Spurs? With the infrastructure that we have and the current board that we have, it's debatable. Would I love to see him? No. I'm gone. No,
you're not gone. You're not gone. We can hear you.
No.
Hear me? We thought you were just going to answer your own rhetorical question. We're like,
I thought you were just reacting to something you've seen on Twitter, saying Nagelsmann Real Madrid. Oh no!
No, cut. I'm back. Spurs. Yeah. I would love him at Spurs, basically, because tactically he's flexible. He's a man-to-man arm around shoulders. He develops the youth. He's everything that we need, everything that we want. I know that the argument is that he hasn't won anything, so he's inexperienced at winning titles, etc. But if
neither have we.
Nagelsmann
goes to the side, right? And this goes for any manager that you want to pick. Like if you want to pick Poch,
didn't he win a title? Didn't he win the league title?
Nagelsmann
won last year with Bayern, I think.
And he's won 2 cups. He's won 2 cups as well.
I wouldn't last year. But what I'm saying to you, hear my point. My point is, I'm happy for Spurs to drop out the top 4. I would like Spurs to get top 4 this season, obviously, because we can attract a top keeper, top defenders, and then we can get a solid foundation, and we can attract a top coach like Nagelsmann. However, if we were to not finish in the top 4 with a Nagelsmann, I still would be happy, because the argument is, he's not title winning, he's not. That's the argument. Like, he hasn't done anything. Do you know what I'm saying? Compared to like the Contes that we have right now and Mourinho's that we had before. But we've proven that when it comes to big coaches, that model doesn't fit with Spurs. the project works better. We work better with project. When there's a lower expectation in the fan base, then that fan base give the managers more time. And if we give the managers more time and we're not like booing and screaming the managers out, then Levy's less reluctant to pull the trigger because he only reacts when he thinks the fans are coming for him. If he thinks the fans are coming for him, that's when he panics and he sacks the manager, or he will sack someone, do you know what I'm saying, to save his own skin. That's how he is. He's very like, he's a coward in that sense, you know what I mean? But I feel like because Nagelsmann is young, he's going to be less pragmatic than like your Levy or even your Conte, because Conte to extent is very safe. He doesn't risk changing the squad, and that's the reason why our squad hasn't really been rotated that much. That's the reason why we came into the FA Cup and that team was untried and tested. We went out to Sheffield United because they hadn't had many games, because they hadn't had a lot of rhythm, they hadn't had that energy, they hadn't had that chemistry together as a team, that particular set 11. That's why we got knocked out. And because Conte was so stubborn and wasn't able to change it throughout the season, give like, other players 10 minutes, 15 minutes there. Imagine he'd given some of our fringe players a bit more time, then he wouldn't have to bring back like a Lucas off the bench, because those other players would have had more game time, more minutes. They would have been able to look at them and see them how they work.
You got more versatility, and you got more play. Yeah,
like you were saying, Brains, they could have that little videotron and say, "Look, you did this well, but then I want you to do this." Yeah. That man management has been missing. Like that Harry Redknapp was really good at that kind of he wasn't tactical genius, but he was good at getting everyone on side. And I feel like a young manager can relate to the younger players a lot more, because their career time as a playing footballer was a lot closer. So they're nearer to like more the modern style football. They understand what's going on.
They got that millennium swag.
They got them exactly. They might even go to the clubs where they go. You never know. You know what I'm trying to say? No, I'm joking. But you get the idea. The culture, the identity, the togetherness is going to be there with him. And that's my argument against those fans that are saying, "Oh, he hasn't got, the credentials to be a top manager."
I think he's overqualified.
Yeah, I agree.
He won too much.
Yeah, but even if it's not Nagelsmann, I'm saying even if it's not Nagelsmann, I'm happy whoever takes in charge from the summer. And like I said, I prefer him to take charge now, not to say like, I just want him in. Like how they got Man United got Ten Hag in. Mm-hmm. Like he was just there, he was in, but he wasn't taking charge of the games, but he was just there watching. I would be happy for Nagelsmann to just do that. Just come in, sit down, just watch the games, analyze everything, while Mason just carries on. Do you know what I mean? Mm. And whether we get top 4 or not, it doesn't matter. But at least because I just feel like if we leave him, he's going to be naked and they're going to eat him up like literally for lunch. The top clubs come sniffing around, and that's how I feel with any player we have. Because the type of board we have, they don't react fast enough in certain situations. Mm-hmm. So like in the January window just gone, we spent the whole window on Porro when we could have been looking at other targets when we knew we needed to strengthen in the back line. And we didn't do that. And then, because there was an opportunity, I'm going against what I said, I know, but because there was an opportunity for Dan Juma, we kind of jumped at that. But then we were still like messing around with Porro, do you know what I mean? And then Porro was the last minute, and then Paratici couldn't get done, and then Levy had to come and save the day, apparently. Like, oh yeah, guys, look, I've saved the day. Look, I did the negotiations, And for me, because he's so, I know it goes back to that, like he's so involved in football when he said he's not going to be out of football. I just don't trust him to get this Nagelsmann deal over the line. But yeah, to answer the question,
so true.
I feel like
Sean, is it a Levy play though? Is this the Levy masterclass to show interest in Nagelsmann, to show
Tuchel,
interest
you mean?
in Tuchel, to then get Nagels, to force the hand of iron.
Listen, I'm always someone that wants to give credit to Daniel Levy, even if it's not necessarily due generally. But on this one, it might have been a Levy masterclass, or it could have been a Tuchel masterclass, feigning interest in the Tottenham job to really get, and then himself leaking out the information to get my agent, let someone in Germany know that I'm in deep conversation with Tottenham, and then Bayern Munich pulled the trigger because he wanted to go home.
if you could take Pochettino, say if it's a case of like Nagelsmann's only coming in at the end of the season, but Pochettino will come in now, would you take Poch now?
No, I think Nagelsmann.
Sorry. No, sorry, mate. Go on. Sorry, I don't know who that was aimed at.
No. Yeah, I just said it. I'll take Nagelsmann still. That's it.
For me, Nagelsmann is. I know he's an egomaniac, and I know that there's no perfect science, right? There's no perfect solution either. What's interesting, I did a live stream a couple of days ago, and we had like everyone playing the thumb game, and we went through every single manager. I'm sure I'm not going to spoil it, but in a nutshell, like there was no consistent, like no one was really getting like overwhelming support. Not Poch, not anybody. For me, Nagelsmann popping up. I love the fact that he's psychologically based, because I do. Whilst I don't agree with what Conte or the way that Conte said what he said, and why he said what he said, I think he was right what he said, and that Tottenham do have a psychological barrier. And if this guy is the sort of person that goes out and goes about the 30% that he thinks is important and has those unique relationships and nuances, like, you know, mannerisms, and tries to figure out which particular version of the carrot and the stick each player needs, and doesn't want to outsource that to some third party who's not going to be in the dressing room, you know, some sports psychologist, then all the better. If he's that kind of like creative and innovative in his stance. And I watched back, you know, he was the first person in Germany back when he was at Hoffenheim. He put a giant, like a massive, I don't know, 40-foot iPad or whatever on the training ground so that he could stop training sessions when he was doing his high intensity training sessions and pivot and replay videos immediately. So he didn't have to disrupt training sessions and take them back into the training room or in the dressing room to show this stuff. So he's always thinking about what's coming. And when you look at his ability to pivot like with his tactics, I don't think it's right to reflect on his style at Bayern Munich, because at Bayern Munich he's always going to have one of the best squads, if like obviously the best squad in Germany. And so when you look at his formation there, it was like 3+1, because it was 4-2-3-1 on paper, but you had the two centre-backs and the right-back that wasn't quite as progressive, that would sit in when they had the ball. You had a DM, and then you had the left back that were playing more as a left-wing forward. So it was almost like a 3-1-5-1. And it was brilliantly aggressive, brilliantly possession-based, but he was playing with Bayern Munich's squad against teams that were always weaker. So I don't think you should really reflect on his system there. Take it back to Leipzig, though, and he played very, very well with, you know, a 3-5-2 situation when they had the ball that pivoted back to some version of either a 5-2-3 or a 3-4-3, however you want to say it, when they didn't. And I think personally that really suits the system of players that Tottenham will have, subject to us improving our centre-backs. You've got Pedro Porro and Udogie that are coming in. Neither of those two players, I'm not saying they can't do it, but neither of them have been tested playing in a back four. Both of them are at their best playing in a wing-back system. And he was at his best with that wing-back system in a squad and for a team that was not the best in the league like he had at Bayern Munich. So for me, I think that Nagelsmann makes a ton of sense. And he's very similar to Amorim. The only difference between him and Amorim is that I think he comes with a better brand, but also Amorim comes with a £30 million release clause. Does Daniel Levy want to pay that and also pay 20 million quid to Conte? How much of an impact does that have on Tottenham's transfer budget in the summer? So
Nagelsmann's training will be electric. Like it will really engage the players. You know.
Are you confident we can convince Nagelsmann to come?
I don't know what motivates him. I don't know the person well enough, or I haven't researched him well enough to know whether it's money or whether it's ego or whether it's a project. I don't know. But look, you know, obviously there's always going to be some trigger that impacts somebody, and it depends also on whether or not Real Madrid pull the trigger and you know cancel Ancelotti out. If they do that now, then I think we're obviously not going to succeed. But there's also rumours that Pochettino, you know, is favoured by Real Madrid. So, you know, what could eventuate is some really crazy managerial merry-go-round that involves Tottenham Hotspur and two of the biggest clubs in Europe. And you might end up seeing some crazy outcomes.